Well, here we are, Friday live again after the half-term break. I'm sure there were people hearts breaking all over the Northwest when we didn't turn up on the Friday last Friday, but it was children time and what have you, so wasn't able to do it. So I'm absolutely thrilled today to be joined by a guy, one of those people who I feel like I've known forever, who I've never met. Does that sound like a very first world situation to some of us now? So I've never met Raj. And I have to say, I feel like I know him really well, even though I never met him. But that's the modern age for you with Zoom and all the rest of it. So I met Raj. I did a live interview with Raj probably it must be about 9 months ago now, Raj, I guess. And I was really impressed with his expertise and not only that, but the way that he described the whole cyber security challenge in a very down-to-earth way. And he certainly got it across. So today, on this live stream on Friday, we're going to just have a chat with Raj about cybersecurity. We're going to start with, are the robots going to kill us all? Because I'm sure Raj has got an insight into that particular answer to that particular question. But on a more serious note, we're going to be talking about the true challenges of cybersecurity and the impact it has on us all, not just big business, but very much small business too. And I certainly can say that I've experienced various different, a few attacks over the years and a few hacks. And you always look back and think, I wish I'd spent a bit more time making a bit more effort to think about it, shall we say. So we'll go live in a second. I'm live now, but I'll just do the intro then and we'll crack on what you really want, which of course is to hear from Raj. So we'll be back in a second. Hello, so a very warm welcome to Friday Live with me, Phil Crowshaw. And this episode is brought to you in association with The Passions Project. And The Passions Project is a YouTube channel which explores through video interviews people's passions, how they've made a living out of them, how they've made business opportunities from them. And that's available on The Passions Project on YouTube. And we're doing all sorts of other jiggery pokery. But so keep an eye open for Passions and The Passions Project. So today, as I say, I'm delighted to be joined by Raj Kundalia, and Raj is going to be talking to me today about cybersecurity and all the issues that it brings up in all our minds of fear, and fear that's not just perceived fear. I think it should really be a true fear, because it has massive consequences on all our businesses. So I've done way far too much talking. Raj, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself and who you are and what it is you're an expert in.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you all for joining today as well. So my background is that I previously probably got about 8 years experience in cybersecurity. I previously worked in building a lot of web applications and websites, and then dealing with a lot of projects. And within those projects, I started coming across the word called something called penetration testing, which is known as ethical hacking. So ethical hacking in the industry is known as a pen test or penetration test. And then I realized that a lot of companies in large corporate companies, you're talking about around 2015, weren't doing these security tests. What that meant is that a cyber criminal could actually easily exploit these vulnerabilities in these applications. So just think about a house. Think about the certain doors that are open. So cyber criminals could walk into those doors, and it wasn't what organizations weren't doing were making sure those doors were locked or those windows were closed. So these cyber criminals could go in, access your house, and steal crown jewels and steal valuable data and cause a lot of havoc. And they still do that today. So that's how I got into cybersecurity, because I could see a big issue out there. I saw, not mentioning any companies that I worked with, but I saw where a car actually got hacked and driven off the road, and that to me was shocking. And that was my first experience what a cyber criminal could potentially do with somebody maybe driving along, and I was just like, wow, that's phenomenal. Just to let you all know, that is very unlikely to happen right now with modern cars, so don't worry about that. But there is a possibility where cars can still get hacked, but I can explain that a bit later as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's oh god, I mean, it doesn't even bear thinking about, really. I mean, I've read in the news that there's been a significant increase in cybercrime as a direct or indirect result of the pandemic. What's driven that? What's happened that's created that situation, or is it just a myth?
No, it is true. So think about it. Previously, we were all in our big offices. If we saw something going a bit like fishy, or something's going strange, maybe an odd email coming in or a strange phone call, you usually got a colleague you can speak to, or maybe you can go over and speak to the IT department. At home, you may just ignore it. You may think it might have been nothing, and also you're not protected by your corporate network. So in the corporate network, you have these firewalls. You have a team that will monitor your network. At home, you have your router. So your home network is not as secure as your corporate network. So that gives the criminal the opportunity to exploit those home networks, but also target you at home, because when you're at home, you're not really thinking about cybersecurity. You're probably thinking, I've got all this work to do, I've got my kids to manage, and you're so more aberrated as well as previously. You go into work, you do your job. If anything does go wrong, you've got your IT guys, or you've got other colleagues that will shout across, oh, don't click on that email. Oh, we're getting some strange phone calls at the moment. So then that, as you're communicating within your business, you can then communicate that to other individuals and act on that response a lot quicker. So that's why it's increasing. I think you're looking at a lack of education as well. You also got a lot of cyber criminals that can buy products online, which is like a software as a service. It's called ransomware as a service. So to explain what ransomware is, it's where basically a cyber criminal holds you to ransom. They can actually, you click on a link or you click on something and you download on your application, like maybe on your laptop or your phone. They can encrypt your laptop, and the only way you can access it is by paying the ransomer to get access to your files. So there's a lot out there at the moment. There's a lot of, as we're growing, as we're saying, COVID has been a big push in our digital change in industry and how we're speeding up in our technology. And we probably wouldn't have done that 10 years, if it wasn't due to COVID. It's the same with cyber criminals. They're getting more sophisticated as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had emails saying, we've hacked into your email, and if you don't send us 400 billion pounds 400 billion Bitcoin, let's get it right. Oh God, I guess it's a difficult question for you to answer, really, but I'm just wondering how much of that is an empty threat, i.e., they've just got your email address and they're just trying it on, if you like, versus where they do actually have access and could do some real damage. And I suppose just relying on people's fear, and I suppose the media cover it quite a lot now. So have you any thoughts on that at all?
Okay, so this is why I go back to probably like the human psychology as well.
Mm,
With the media, fear. So when you're just say when you're scared and when something shocks you, you react a lot quicker. So if for example, like I've done martial arts, so when someone punches you, you're ready to like react or maybe move back. And that's what happens with that email, that fear message. You're like, oh no, I better pay it. I better pay it. But that's where in martial arts and any that's I learn on how to defend myself or watch out before that fight happens. Or
yeah.
I can prevent it from happening. Same with the training. If you get the right training, I can tell you straight now, that's probably that's a bluff. Someone's trying to trick you from paying them. If they did get you, your computer would be encrypted, and there'll be another you'll know exactly you won't be able to access anything. So I would say make sure you do some kind of cybersecurity awareness training, but also antivirus. Make sure you do have some antivirus. The reason why these companies are still around is because it's still valid. Antivirus only picks up a 33% of known threats. But it's better to have something than nothing. You're probably thinking, oh, I've got Windows, or I've got Mac, that's fine. And you're probably thinking, oh, I've got a Mac, it's the most secure, Macs don't get hacked. Well, the first virus was detected on the Mac, which people don't probably, if you Google it is there. But what in cybersecurity we say, when it's on your laptop, it's a bit too late. So how do you prevent that? So you prevent that by educating, but also as a home user, you can buy something called I think it's called a Bit Defender box, where you can put that against your router. It actually speeds up the internet, but it actually cuts out all the bad traffic. So it will prevent it from hitting your home network. So you've got all these different tools out there. I know you're probably thinking, okay, how much is it going to cost me? But I would say prevention's always better than the cure. So if you did get hacked and you got compromised, that's going to be a lot more costs to you than actually buying some of these antivirus and hardware to actually prevent, being a victim of cybercrime.
Yeah. Do you think we've got to the point now where, obviously, starting a business has never been easier. Growing a business, that's another conversation, as we all know. But starting a business is very, very simple. Bank account, sole trader, HMRC, laptop, mobile phone. You're in business pretty much. If you're selling knowledge, which a lot of people are now. But obviously, I think one of the things I've noticed as a business development consultant over the years is there seems to be less and less effort and energy goes into the planning process going into starting the business. It's like, I've got a technical ability, I can do paintings, and they just start the business because they can do paintings and they can sell the paintings that they do. But there seems to be less and less effort going into the planning process, maybe because it's the boring bit for a lot of people, especially if you're creative. And I get it, because I'm in that creative arena, as you probably know. And so that kind of thing leaves me cold. But I know, maybe because I'm old and I've got this background in corporate as well, that don't underestimate the planning. I guess where I'm coming from here is it something now that is just almost like a prerequisite part of the planning process of setting up and budgeting for the business, like you would marketing? Is security and cybersecurity part of that planning process that just needs to be factored in early doors?
110% agree with that. It should be included right at the beginning. You should always do a business plan, and when you think of a business plan, think of doing not only 12 months but planning it for 5 years. Also, with cybersecurity, the way I try to plan is work backwards. So what do I mean by that is, if you did get hacked and you got compromised, what would you do? What's the first step? Do you have backups? Can you restore from your backups? When's the last time you tested your backups? Have your backup? How do you know if your backups haven't already been, encrypted or infected? So I always start with 10 steps when it comes to cybersecurity on the prevention side of things. Because if you plan that and you practice that within yourself, and you understand, like, you might be working with an IT company and you might say, oh, they look after that. No, it's your responsibility. Because if you get breached, it's not only it's your name, it's your reputation out there. You could be affected by the media as well, but also you've got GDPR, which is one of the legislations that is here to stay. And we're still, even though we're no longer part of the EU, it's still compliant to us with all the work that we do. And the great thing about GDPR is making sure that people protect your data. So you want Facebook and Google and all these companies to protect your data. Can you imagine if small companies weren't doing that with your data and they're selling it off and passing it over? Can you imagine if someone had details of, your children's date of birth, your parents' medical records, or so on? You want to make sure that's protected. So you build that all in from the beginning, because if you do it once, it's like once you've, if you do it at the end, it's a costly exercise. So I would say, so you're probably thinking, how much is it going to cost? I'm a startup. So the great thing, what you've got in the UK now, you've got something called a Cyber Resilience Centre. You've got 10 across the UK. You've definitely got one closer to you. And that's supported by majority of people that run those cyber resilience centres are the police. So they're usually superintendents. The one in Greater Manchester that looks after Northwest, that the Manchester Cyber Resilience Centre is run by Neil Jones, who's superintendent. He's responsible for all murder investigations, ransomware attacks across the Northwest. And you have ethical people running these cyber resilience centres, but also they provide you all the trainings and the policies and everything that you need to get started and what to consider. But on the back of that as well, you've got trusted cybersecurity supplier companies that they have vetted, that if you did have a problem or you need help, they've got an already approved supplier list that you can go to. So for me as a startup, even if I was thinking about starting my own cybersecurity company or any business, I would go into I would have my business plan and speak to a member of the Cyber Resilience Centre, or I'm happy for people to reach out to me and say, this is my business. What, in terms of cybersecurity, what should I be considering? And the great thing is, if you are a startup or a business, you actually can outsource a lot of that risk as well.
Which I would imagine which I'd imagine a small business would. That's definitely something that they would have to do, isn't it? The vast majority of us, I mean, I'm reasonably tech savvy, but not to nowhere near that level of knowledge where I would understand fully about how to protect myself and my computers, my IT, with what's necessary.
Yeah, and that's where the Cyber Resilience Centre will put that plan together and those processes and procedures. And unfortunately, like all these policies, there's more paperwork, but see it as a cultural change. Don't see it as an actual headache. Think about learning that policy, learning that procedure. Because if you're secure, what these large companies are looking for is making sure that you're doing your due diligence when it comes to cybersecurity. Because of these large corporate organizations, the reason why a lot of them get hacked is due to their supply chain, because they're not taking cybersecurity a lot seriously. So there's a big thing about supply assurance. So when you when you go through the procurement process for these big corporate organizations, they'll go through a checklist if you have all those things. And one of the things on top of that agenda is cybersecurity.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. I've got a question here actually from Shona. And Shona's just saying that she bought a new laptop which had McAfee antivirus on it. And she's saying that, I'm paraphrasing because it's quite long, but she's just saying that it ran out because it was a trial. It ran out, but somebody told her that because she's got Defender on her Windows, she doesn't need to take out the McAfee as well. Is that right? Is that true?
So this is where I was saying, like, the Windows Defender, the Windows is very basic when it comes to securing your laptop. Depends what you're storing on your laptop as well. So I would always recommend buying a well-known antivirus software out there. There's quite a few out there as well. One that I do recommend, which I have used and I use with a lot of my clients, just to clear up their laptop if they have got any malware, which is malicious software on their laptop. It's called Malwarebytes. The great thing about Malwarebytes is you can download a 14-day trial. You can remove everything on your computer, and then you can delete it afterwards. So you don't really that's a great way to clear your malware. But also, they do have a good program. Also, if you do decide to use another antivirus software, make sure you fully uninstall the current software that you're using. Leave the Windows one. It's only because anti-software does slow down your laptop as well. So
Right.
I would recommend that you clear out any antivirus software before you download a new one.
Right. Okay. And you were talking earlier about Macs and PCs and about but Apple products can be vulnerable. There is that perception, isn't there, that Apple Macs and such like are not vulnerable to attack in the same way that PCs are. Is that how it is?
So if you were to open a link and download an app, a malware, it doesn't matter if you've got a Mac or or a Windows machine, it can get infected. So what antivirus does as well, as soon as you download it, even though you want to prevent downloading it, but if you do download it, it can quarantine that virus if it's already known within their tool set. If it's not known in their tool set, remember I said it's only 30% of known threats out there that the antivirus can actually deal with, because they're playing catch up with the cyber criminals as well.
Yeah.
So I would always say try to get some, always do some training. Just make sure that if you got an email from someone and you never received it before, you never heard from this person before, look at the URL, the email address. Does it look a bit strange to you? Is there any grammar mistakes within the email? The attachment, do you need to download that attachment? Is there some kind of urgency of some kind of payment saying that they're demanding something? I'm like 9 times out of 10, that's definitely a phishing email. Delete it straight away. If it is from HMRC or TV license, go to their website, ring them directly if you're still unsure, but never ever ring the number or use any of the details on that email address unless you're expecting something from somebody.
I guess at the same time, if Prince Hassim sends you an email from Nigeria offering you £500,000, then that's probably something that you should be ignoring. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, no, exactly. But you probably noticed as well. So you got phishing, which is for the emails, and the idea of phishing is trying to get some personal identified information off you, maybe your email address, your personal address, your password, maybe, and then once they've got that information, they'll probably use that to maybe access your other accounts online. The other thing that you get is something called phishing. I'm sure you've received those HMRC phone calls demanding payment or the automated messages.
Yes.
That's known as phishing. And then you might be getting the text messages, which is known as smishing, which is maybe it's a bank transfer, which you're like, I don't, my bank's not HSBC Bank, it's another bank. Why am I getting this text message? So if you receive any of those phone calls or those text messages, all I ask you to do is forward them to 7726, because that's where your mobile provider and the government will investigate and block that off their network. And if they can, they will try to prosecute that person because it is a criminal offence to do that. But going back to the emails and the malware side of things, I would say get antivirus, make sure you do some training, always read their email. And if it sounds too good, if it's something like some kind of urgency or they're getting you to do something, then 9 times out of 10 it's a phishing email.
Yeah, no, that makes an awful lot of sense. And I've read recently as well that a lot of these polls and that are on Twitter and on Facebook, what was your trying to dig into your nostalgic past? What was your first car? What was the name of your first pet and things like that? As I understand it, that's also a way of getting data from you that you would often use in some kind of security check with a provider. Did you get that?
Yes, that's correct. That's also sorry, Phil, I think my internet dropped out. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Did you hear what I said, Raj?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. So
yeah,
those polls and stuff, what they're trying to do is try to get some personal information from you. So asking about your first pet name, your first school you went into, they're probably passwords that you use. So the idea is trying to obtain as much information about you. So then that is basically a social engineering exercise where a criminal tries to get as much information about you to then try to target you. Because you might think you might be a senior person in an organization, or your partner might be a senior person in an organization. Maybe it's maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your parent, and what they'll try to do is maybe try to exploit you to get them as well.
Yeah, it just seems as if you're always having to be on your guard. I suppose that's what drains your energy. But I had a situation myself, actually, slightly different, but a similar kind of scenario in a way. That my mobile the other day just switched off. It's a Galaxy Note 8. It's a few years old, but it's still a good mobile. And all of a sudden, it just switched off, and I couldn't get it to come back on no matter what I did. And then, of course, panic sets in. And I was thinking, then, have I backed everything up? Probably not. I've probably, as you do, I'll get around to it at some point and everything else. But by the grace of God, I found on the internet that there's a way of doing a soft reset with it by pressing certain buttons in certain orders and all that kind of thing. And it came back into life, but it gave me a real kick in the butt, really, to be honest, about maybe next time it won't. So do you find that sometimes people put these things off on the basis that I'll get round to it eventually? But then the danger, of course, is something happens before they get round to it, and they are paying dearly for that lack of urgency, I suppose, in the process.
Yeah, no. Well, at the end of the day, the way I said, we're only human, right? So we're gonna also sometimes be, see what's in front of us and deal with that. So we're short-sighted on what we so I'll give you an example. As a business, you probably you got an opportunity to maybe buy some new hardware, or you've got money spent on a cybersecurity audit. You need that hardware to do your work. You need that hardware for, because your team's expanding and you need to update what you're currently using. And then you think twice, do I spend that money on my cybersecurity audit, or do I spend that money on something that I actually do need? 9 times out of 10, people are going to spend money on what they actually need, because without that hardware, you're not going to be able to grow. So it's and the same thing scenario with the phone. You probably had other things. Your phone probably, it is important, but it's probably wasn't a priority with all the other things that you've got going on at the moment. Can you afford to replace your phone with the increase in pricing on products and hardware at the moment as well? You do think, could it wait for another year? Could it last me another year? And they're perfectly normal things, to go through. With Samsung and Apple, you can back up your account. Just make sure you set it up and you back up your passwords and your details. So as soon as you sign on to a new Samsung or an Apple phone, it will just download it all straight from the cloud. So that's something I recommend as well with your personal devices. Just make sure that, like I just said, with a cybersecurity incident, work backwards. If your phone got stolen or it broke, how quickly could you restore back? And it's like, you may not do it every day. You may test it once a year, or maybe once every 2 years. But I would say, as humans, when was the last time I tested my phone? To be honest, I just make sure that I've got all my photos backed up and all my contacts backed up. If I lost anything else on my phone, the memories of my photos, that's what I care about, and my contacts. Anything else can go. It doesn't matter. As long as you just need to maybe just prioritize yourself in the sense that what's important to me to back up. So, and if it isn't that important, then it's okay to go, but make sure you make that decision beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying that, you obviously were saying about the level of sophistication that everybody's experiencing now. They're getting, because basically organised crime is behind it a lot of the time, isn't it? It's not necessarily some 40-year-old person in a house in Barnsley. It's usually organised crime on the bigger stuff. Do you, I mean, obviously you're not Nostradamus any more than me, but do you have a feel for, will we get to the point whereby the sophistication of the protection and the removal of the threat will be greater than the sophistication of the threat? Do you think we might ever get to that point with AI and things like that?
I think so. This is where I say with cyber criminals that they're definitely ahead of us. They're probably using the AI technology already to exploit a lot of businesses and companies. As we grow, they have the same platform and technology that we have access to. They still have access to all the right knowledge as we do. And unfortunately, these are the people that you see normally in the streets when you go shopping. They work in big, nice, shiny buildings when we were able to pre-COVID. I'll say there's always going to be, because we're so connected digitally and it's growing, smart cities and electric cars, all these points, and software gets outdated so quickly now. You have to continuously update. And an example of that is, how often do you update your iPad or your iPhone? There's loads of updates coming up. And the reason for those updates is because there's loads of security vulnerabilities that have been identified and they need to be updated. So, and there's also, I remember in 2019, Apple released a software update, but when they released that software update, it actually introduced a new vulnerability where a cyber criminal could exploit. So they quickly released within a week another update. So that's why it's very important to regularly update all your machines. If you're using Windows 7, upgrade to Windows 10 because Microsoft no longer supports it. If you're using an operating system that you can no longer update, unfortunately, make sure you don't plug that into the internet, because as soon as you plug it into the internet, just think about, like you talked about AI, cyber criminals can pinpoint that device. It doesn't matter who you are. They will target that device.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And I believe, isn't Windows 11's rumored to be on its way, isn't it? You heard that?
Personally, no. I know it's in development, but I haven't looked too much into it. But it wouldn't be surprising. But with any new operating system, there's so much testing that needs to be done, as you can imagine, with all the new vulnerabilities out there. So what happens with any new Microsoft release? I mentioned that the ethical hacks and the penetration testing, which is ethical hacks. A lot, the companies will be testing that and doing all sorts of testing before they release it.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely it. And obviously, when they release this software, it's that full of bugs, isn't it? That by the time it's actually safe to use, it could be God knows how long late after that. Right. Okay, Raj, thanks very much for that. That's really interesting. Some good stuff there. How do people get hold of you then and get in touch with you if they want to talk to you more about this stuff? Is there an email
Yeah, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. It is down as Raj Kundalia. Facebook, I try to keep it as personal, my personal contacts. I always say lock down your Facebook. And I'll say LinkedIn's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I am on Twitter as well, which is at Raj Kundalia as well. So if you want to reach out to me, please drop me a message and I'll be happy to connect.
Fantastic, Raj. Thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish today's show with a bit of music. A good friend of mine, Tom Seals, has just launched a tour around the UK. Fantastic performer. And I thought, I've not told him this, but I thought I'd utilize the platform to just give him a little bit of promo on his music and his tour. So one of the things that Tom does is he actually does covers of songs written, but with a different slant, a different arrangement through the piano, rather than the traditional way in which you would tend to hear it. So I'm going to play that now, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. I'll leave it now and so you can see if you can recognize the song. I think you probably will. And Raj, thanks very much for joining me today, mate. Really appreciate it. And hopefully I will actually physically meet you at some point in the not too distant future. So thanks very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks for everyone that joined today.
No worries. Thanks, Raj. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, that was Raj Kundalia, and he's an absolute. I called him a guru when I called when in the description, and there was a reason I did. I thought about it, and he is actually a guru. He really knows his stuff, and he's very well respected. Okay, so to finish off today's show, then this is Tom Seals with a song that you'll probably recognise. Check out his tour coming up. I think I did actually, just bear with me a second. I think I did actually load a few of the dates just so you could have a quick look. There you go. Tom Seals. It's called the 45s Tour. I've just bought the tickets myself for myself and my wife, Sunday the 19th of September at Salford Quays Theatre. Yes, that's real. A real theatre, allegedly. Albeit, of course, the news today is that the R rate's going back up again. What's going to happen? Who the heck knows? I think we've all given up trying to read the future because we absolutely don't know, do we? So anyway, this is Tom Seals, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. This is Tom Seals with a song that hopefully you will recognize.
When I'm with you, baby, I go out of my head, and I just can't get enough, and I just can't get enough. All the things you do to me and everything you said, because I just can't get enough. We slip and slide as we fall in love, and it just can't seem to get enough of. Just can't get enough. We walk together, walking down the street. Just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Every time I think of you, I know we have to meet. Just can't get enough. Just can't get enough. It's getting harder and it's burning low, and I just can't seem to get enough of. Oh, I just can't get enough. Oh, and I just can't get enough. Oh, yeah. When I'm with you, baby, I go out of my head. Just can't get enough. Just can't get enough. All the things you do to me and everything you said, and I just can't get enough. And I just can't get enough. We slip and slide as we roll in love, and I just can't seem to get enough of. Oh, I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Yeah, that's Tom Seals with Just Can't Get Enough by Depeche Mode. And they're a band that I'm a big fan of, so I particularly like that song. And as I say, you can see them on tour around the country in the coming months. Hopefully that's going to take place with the COVID situation as it is, and we'll have to wait and see, but there's a good chance it will. Okay, so that's about it for today, Friday Live. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to Raj for joining me, talking about cybersecurity. You know, not the most sexiest subject, but without any shadow of a doubt, it can destroy your business. And I know people who have ignored it, and it's literally destroyed their business. So please don't ignore it. take it seriously and do your research around protecting your data and protecting your systems the best way that you can. It'll be worth the effort, I can assure you. Okay, have a great weekend, and I will catch you all very, very soon. And next week, next Friday, we'll be back on. And I'm not sure who my guest is. I've got somebody lined up, but I can't remember who it is. So thanks again, folks, and I will see you all very soon again. Bye-bye for now.